Fourth Avenue to Techwood Drive, O'Leary to Key. It's WreckTalk.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to what is now the WreckTalk Conference Science Studio. I've got the Mad Hatter jacket on, we've got the glasses on, and everything has become chaos. It's chaos in the ACC right now. Why is it chaos? Louisville loses to Cal at home. Cal walks off the game with a touchdown in overtime, and that gives Louisville 2 losses. Now, Louisville's not dead in the water. Far from it. And Virginia loses to Wake at home. Both pretty thrilling games. We streamed them on the channel. But now Virginia has their first loss. Again, they lost to NC State. That didn't count. There was a scheduling issue. They scheduled each other. It doesn't count against their conference record. But also, we'll see, because we're going to go over the tiebreak rules again. It also can't help them. Can't hurt them. Can't help them. Before we get into the video, though, if you're on the outside looking in right now and you need a lot of help, like Louisville does, like Miami does, you don't have to stink like your team is right now. You don't have to wallow in it. You can go to kingsransomusa.com today. You can get some high-quality luxury colognes. This is my personal favorite here, the old Fighter cologne. I'm smelling good in the Conference Science Studio, baby. You can use promo code WreckTalk, and you can get a little discount there for yourself. Helps the channel. Helps a Georgia Tech chemical engineering graduate. They're the official sponsor of WreckTalk. We've got 8 wins on the back of the beard oils King's Ransom makes. So check those guys out. It helps out, and we'll get back to it. So let's go over, because I get asked 20 times a stream before we dive into it, what are the rules? Because a lot of people coming into this were saying, well, in a 3-way tie between Virginia, Louisville, and Georgia Tech, obviously it's Georgia Tech and Virginia because they have the head-to-head win over Louisville. This is not true. Let's go. Let's go to the board here. Camera, move. Okay, now we're going to go over the rules. So like Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, you can never say, I misinterpreted the rules. Let's look at it. First, we're going to look at a 3-way tie. Honestly, the only difference in a 3-way tie and head-to-head is in a head-to-head win over that team matters. So in a 3-way tie, doesn't matter if you beat one of the teams head-to-head. That does not matter. I cannot stress it enough. Please do not ask me in my live streams whether that matters. It doesn't in a 3-way tie. The only thing head-to-head that matters in a 3-way tie, the first thing you're going to look at is combined winning percentage of all, I underlined it many times, all tied teams, if all tied teams are common opponents. All right? If you're not all common opponents, none of this matters. And I put here in almost every scenario I've looked at, in all the scenarios I've looked at, this doesn't apply. It just shakes out that way. If this doesn't apply, maybe you can screenshot this, or you can look up the ACC tiebreak rules yourself. Then you look at has one of the tied teams beat all the other teams? If not, has one of the tied teams lost to all the other teams? This rarely ever applies either. And in one-loss situations, this can't happen anyways, though it will become important when you look at 3-way ties between 2 lost teams. That's the only way this can apply. If this doesn't apply, then you look at win percentage of all common opponents. Now, what we're going to see, I almost fell like an idiot. I'm not even editing that out. You need to know I make mistakes. What we're going to see is Wake becomes really important here, and Wake is the reason Georgia Tech is in the driver's seat right now, or they're a big reason why Georgia Tech's in the driver's seat, even though they missed that call. Type and cry about it if you're a Wake Forest fan, I guess. If you don't have common opponents, look, if you have a 3-way, 4-way tie, a lot of times there aren't common opponents there, or your common opponent is Stanford and you've all beat Stanford or Boston College. Then it goes to, of all your ACC opponents, which team has the best winning percentage? So what team's opponents have the best winning percentage? Louisville has the best, and it's not even close. Then in most cases, it goes somewhere between Pitt and Duke. They're virtually tied. And then it goes SMU and then Georgia Tech, Virginia. But a lot of that can change. There's football left to play. If that doesn't decide it, and there can be ties there, believe me, I've looked at it. Then it goes to Sports Source Analytics, this grading website. I don't have access to it, but you'll look at who has the best sports team analytics score. If that doesn't decide it, it goes to Conference Commissioner. Now, if there's two teams, let's say one team's clearly in, maybe Georgia Tech, and then there's a head-to-head tie between Virginia and Louisville, then the head-to-head puts Virginia then, but only if there's not a three-way tie, only if it's head-to-head. Hope that makes sense. Hope that clears that up. Let's move on to some scenarios. All right, now that we know the rules, we can look at some different scenarios. First, I want to show you an excellent tool that, shout out to N. Dennis. You're now in the WreckTalk Hall of Fame. Super chatted this to me, bball.notnothing.net. This is a tool that some Iowa State, I'm guessing computer science graduate, alum, made up. You can go for men's basketball, women's basketball, or football, any conference, or most of the conferences. I'm not even going to say any. And you can predict the rest of the games, and it will calculate who's going to the conference championship and just the straight standings. So if I hit calculate here, it will show me what the finish is going to be in the ACC, as well as why Georgia Tech would be above Duke and SMU in this scenario. I highly recommend sending this guy a Venmo of like $5 or something. You can tinker around with this. This is how I'm predicting the rest of the games instead of doing it by hand myself. This is an absolute godsend. Shout out to M Red here. He's also at M Red on Twitter too. If you want to follow him, I actually reached out to him to see if he would come on the show. But either way, the show must continue. So I'm like, this is like Home Improvement, and I'm the guy's neighbor. There's only 5 teams with 1 losses now. We just talked about Virginia, lost to Wake. Duke lost to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech lost to NC State. Pitt lost to Louisville. And SMU lost to Wake. I told you Wake was going to be important. So in a 1-loss, 3-way tie scenario, obviously, UVA and Duke play each other. They can't both be in it. And Georgia Tech and Pitt both play each other, so they can't both be in it. So there's only 4 scenarios you could have with a 3-way 1-loss tie now. That's SMU, Georgia Tech, Virginia. Now, Georgia Tech Wake is the only common opponent here. Georgia Tech beat them. The other teams lost to them, so Georgia Tech's clearly in. Then it's going to come down to SMU and Virginia. It's going to come down to conference record, since they both lost, or not opponents' conference record, since they both lost to Wake. Most likely Virginia going to be in and SMU going to be out. Let's say Georgia Tech gets beat by Pitt. You had SMU, Pitt, UVA. Well, then Pitt's going to be out. The common opponents are Louisville and Stanford between those 3 schools. And the only way SMU could be in is with a win over Louisville. Obviously, Virginia's already beat Louisville. Pitt would be out in that scenario. Let's say Duke wins out, Georgia Tech wins out, and SMU wins out. The only common opponent is Wake. SMU has already lost to Wake. Duke, and the only way Duke can be in is with a win over Wake, and Georgia Tech's already beat Wake. SMU would be out in that scenario. The other scenario you could have, probably the least likely, is SMU, Pitt, Duke. Duke would be in based on opponent record, and then it would come down to SMU and Pitt's conference record would decide it, and I've looked at that. SMU will be in if one of these 2 things happen. FSU beats Virginia Tech, FSU loses to Virginia Tech, then SMU would get in over Pitt, or UNC wins over NC State. So I don't know. I think FSU's likely to beat Virginia Tech, but who knows? So if FSU loses to Virginia Tech, SMU's in, or UNC beats NC State. There could be some other weird scenarios there, but SMU and Pitt are almost dead tied in opponents' conference record. So that's how that would play out. Let's look at some other scenarios. All right, first let's say, what if the ACC title was played today? Who would it be? Pretty easy to see. It'd be Georgia Tech playing Virginia. Duke's going to be fifth, but that's because they haven't played as many ACC games as the other teams. But that's who would play today. It'd be Georgia Tech, Virginia, with SMU being first out, and then Pitt. Now, there are scenarios where Miami could still get in. Louisville could still get in. So those teams have to have no more than one one-loss team. So they need, of the 5 one-loss teams, 4 of those teams have to take an L. Now, again, we just looked, 2 of them play each other, Georgia Tech, Pitt, UVA, Louisville. But Miami and Louisville needing a lot of help here. So let's look at a scenario where Miami gets in. Obviously, Miami has to win out. I have the remaining schedule here on the screen. Georgia Tech taking a loss here. I think Virginia wins out here, and then Duke takes a loss. Georgia Tech takes a loss. And then Pitt just so happens to play Miami at the last game of the year, which is going to put them out. Should that scenario happen, let's say, well, in this scenario, SMU wins out. Then you'd have Miami, Virginia, Pitt, Georgia Tech, all in a 4-way tie for second. Georgia Tech would be the first out. Georgia Tech's boned by their opponent win percentage if they take a loss. In fact, if Georgia Tech wins out, they're clearly in. If Georgia Tech loses to Pitt, I don't know that there's a scenario that Georgia Tech could make it after that. But Georgia Tech would be the first out, then Pitt, and then Virginia. This is all based on opponent win percentage. You could have an SMU-Miami rematch. Again, I'll put what would have to happen in the schedule back up on the screen. Again, you can go to this website and run these yourself. Louisville could get in. Obviously, Louisville would have to win out. Georgia Tech, I've got Georgia Tech losing to Pitt in this scenario. Miami beating Pitt. I think we've got Virginia winning out. Yep. So you have a 7-1 Virginia. Then it would come down to Louisville, Miami, SMU, and Pitt in a 4-way tie for second to see who plays Virginia. First out's going to be Pitt with the worst opponent winning percentage, then SMU, Miami, and you would have a rematch of Virginia-Louisville. So you could have a rematch of Virginia-Louisville. You could have a rematch of Miami-SMU in these 2-loss situations. Absolutely crazy. But I just wanted to show you that. Definitely go show that guy some love at MRed there. Yeah, I guess just to recap, Georgia Tech in the driver's seat again. If they could just win out, that's a tall order. I think Pitt's going to be a tough game for them, even with the game being in Atlanta. And SMU, I would pay attention. If you're an SMU fan, pay attention to this FSU Virginia Tech game. You need FSU to lose that one because Pitt plays them and you don't. You also would really love it if by some miracle North Carolina could beat NC State. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know this is all kind of a mess. What do you think? What's the most likely scenario in your book? Honestly, the most likely scenarios, I think Virginia's losing another game. I think Georgia Tech has the highest percentage to win the conference at this point. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. We'll talk to you guys next time.